Oklahoma is my home. This is where I was born and raised. It was here where I was given a chance at life, being conceived after my mother was violated at the age of 16. This is where I received my education and learned with hard work, discipline, and courage anything was possible. But things have changed. This is not the Oklahoma I remember. Over the last several years, I've seen fear, chaos, and division tear this nation apart through the efforts of communists and the apathy of Republicans in name only, who are either incapable or unwilling to do whatever it takes to protect our God-given rights. Election fraud, open borders, riots, unvetted Afghan refugees, and 300,000 plus acres of land sold to Chinese nationals has made Oklahoma the hub for human trafficking, the indoctrination of our children in critical race theory, sexual immorality, and abortion on demand. And finally, the unconstitutional and illegal vaccine mandate, leaving hundreds of thousands of our legal and law-abiding citizens jobless. Enough is enough, and the political theater must stop. We must have a governor who's willing to lead legislators and Oklahomans to fight back against this tyranny and aggressively address these issues head-on. As the next governor of the state of Oklahoma, I will, in the first 100 days, initiate a forensic audit with canvases to ensure election integrity, secure Oklahoma's borders, stop all state funding to school districts who train or teach CRT to faculty, staff, or students, and end all abortions. Oklahoma, let's put our faith back in God, believe that nothing is impossible, and make Oklahoma free again. Oklahoma is my home. This is where I was born and raised. It was here where I was given a chance at life, being conceived after my mother was violated at the age of 16. This is where I received my education and learned with hard work, discipline, and courage anything was possible. But things have changed. This is not the Oklahoma I remember. Over the last several years, I've seen fear, chaos, and division tear this nation apart through the efforts of communists and the apathy of Republicans in name only, who are either incapable or unwilling to do whatever it takes to protect our God-given rights. Election fraud, open borders, riots, unvetted Afghan refugees, and 300,000 plus acres of land sold to Chinese nationals has made Oklahoma the hub for human trafficking, the indoctrination of our children in critical race theory, sexual immorality, and abortion on demand. And finally, the unconstitutional and illegal vaccine mandate, leaving hundreds of thousands of our legal and law-abiding citizens jobless. Enough is enough, and the political theater must stop. We must have a governor who's willing to lead legislators and Oklahomans to fight back against this tyranny and aggressively address these issues head-on. As the next governor of the state of Oklahoma, I will, in the first 100 days, initiate a forensic audit with canvases to ensure election integrity, secure Oklahoma's borders, stop all state funding to school districts who train or teach CRT to faculty, staff, or students, and end all abortions. Oklahoma, let's put our faith back in God, believe that nothing is impossible, and make Oklahoma free again. Oklahoma is my home. This is where I was born and raised. It was here where I was given a chance at life, being conceived after my mother was violated at the age of 16. This is where I received my education and learned with hard work, discipline, and courage anything was possible. But things have changed. This is not the Oklahoma I remember. Over the last several years, I've seen fear, chaos, and division tear this nation apart through the efforts of communists and the apathy of Republicans in name only, who are either incapable or unwilling to do whatever it takes to protect our God-given rights. Election fraud, open borders, riots, unvetted Afghan refugees, and 300,000 plus acres of land sold to Chinese nationals has made Oklahoma the hub for human trafficking, the indoctrination of our children in critical race theory, sexual immorality, and abortion on demand. And finally, the unconstitutional and illegal vaccine mandate, leaving hundreds of thousands of our legal and law-abiding citizens jobless. Enough is enough, and the political theater must stop. We must have a governor who's willing to lead legislators and Oklahomans to fight back against this tyranny and aggressively address these issues head-on. As the next governor of the state of Oklahoma, I will, in the first 100 days, initiate a forensic audit with canvases to ensure election integrity, secure Oklahoma's borders, stop all state funding to school districts who train or teach CRT to faculty, staff, or students, and end all abortions. Oklahoma, let's put our faith back in God, believe that nothing is impossible, and make Oklahoma free again.
Welcome, everyone, to another virtual town hall meeting. I'm Dr. Mark Sherwood, as you know, running for governor of the state of Oklahoma, and I am extra excited tonight because we have got an extra special guest. We're going to be talking about some things such as turnpikes, Constitution, and mental health, and I'll get into that in just a moment. But we have had a lot of things happening around our campaign. We've talked to many, many people, and I can tell you this, people are tired of politics and politicians. Now, what I'm getting ready to say is really a nonpartisan issue. We do not need politicians in office anymore. We need to put statesmen and stateswomen in office. It is time that we step up as people and begin to be heard once again and become we the people. Ladies and gentlemen, government has gotten too big. It's gotten far too big because we've allowed it to get big. Yeah. We've allowed it because we have acquiesced what is called our own self-government to government. And when you do that, you turn over authority in your life to other things that should never have been in that position before. Big government, especially the federal government, should have always been the smallest government. The states, yes, the states, the local government, these are the foundations of our world. They're the foundation of our country. We in America are the island of hope. We're seeing around us all over the world, to our north, south, east, and west. The borders around us are pushing and squeezing in. And right here as we sit in the United States of America, we represent the last, best, and only hope the world has for freedom. We need to stand up right now and never back down again at all. Folks, and I wish I could tell you that everything's going to be given back to us. But frankly, it's not going to be given back. You got to take back that which was stolen. We have been nice too long. There comes a time when nice has to turn into turning over tables. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Tyranny has been a subject of much discussion recently, with that word being bannered about. Well, we really don't know what that means, do we? Or do we? When we hear the word tyranny, let me define that for you in a way you'll never forget. Tyranny is when the people fear the government, and that can be local, state, or federal. But my friends, freedom is when the government fears the people. Now, we are not advocating taking up arms and taking over the government, but even the founding fathers talked about the big government. If it got so big, the people had a responsibility not to sit back and just pray for them, but to overthrow that government. And that's what we were talking about. And it's not to that point yet. We pray to God it will never get there. But folks, we got to fight for our freedom like never before. That's why I'm stepping up. My wife and I, we have been very successful in life. Thank you to the Lord Almighty. We've written 3 #1 best-selling books. We've made 3 movies. We've got a successful practice. We don't need this job. But my wife and I decided to step up and be obedient to the call of God in our lives to represent the people, because we are one of you. We are we the people. I do not, will not ever be bought, compromised, or influenced by any special interest groups, because I simply want to do the right thing. It's about righteousness. Right is right and wrong is wrong. And I don't need the legislature to tell me that. That's what I have inside me. That's what we have inside of us. That is the gift of God. Speaking of the gift of God, we need to understand that our rights have been compromised. Our rights have been eroded away. Many politicians do not know the Constitution. Many pastors do not know the Word of God. We should not be surprised, because there is a time that we saw coming a long time ago. And I want you to understand that we need all of you to get on board with this mission. This is not about just Oklahoma. This is about the sanctity and the preservation of our republic and freedom as a whole. And we're going to see Oklahoma become the beacon of hope for the entire world to see. We're going to see God's hand of blessing come across Oklahoma in a way that's never been seen before. We're going to see relationships rebuilt. We're going to see economy healed. We're going to see people healed. We're going to see us spiritually healed again. And we're going to stand tall for the world to see. And it's going to be a light and a beacon of hope for the entire United States of America. It's going to set these United States in a trajectory that's not been seen since 1775 and 1776. You're going to see states band together once again to stand up for the rights of the people. Now, I want to remind you, we've got a lot of things happening. Just to update you, if you're wondering where we're going to be doing, a lot of people say, well, are you just doing virtual town halls? Absolutely not. We have been out on the campaign trail. Right now, I'm actually in Oregon at a speaking event, but I'll be back in a couple of days, and we've got a couple things next week going on live as well. But check this out. If you'll go to our app right now at Sherwood 2022, you can go to the website, Sherwood2022.com, and it'll pop up. You can download this app. You can go to your app store right now and get this. On the front of this app, it says, and I quote, "Never bow down to tyrants. Defy them." And it's right there with some cool videos. If you want to know where we're going to be, you can see right down here at the bottom. There's our events. They're posted right here for you. A couple things coming up. Obviously, we've got next Tuesday, we have a virtual town hall meeting again. Get this, with Sheriff Richard Mack. Yes, the constitutional sheriff is going to be on the virtual town hall, and we're going to talk about this with our guests later on tonight. But he'll be in Norman, Oklahoma on May the 7th, Saturday. You need to get there. This is open to the public, and the sheriffs across this state and even other states are coming here to get trained. And the Oklahoma state sheriffs are getting continuing education credit hours for that. The first time that I know Sheriff Mack's been able to have the potential to train an entire state. I'm talking in these United States. This is the first time he's been able to train an entire state in these constitutional principles that we need to understand. Folks, we need to understand our Constitution. Too many people out there have no idea. We've had the First, Second, 10th Amendments be completely violated over and over again because we had no clue. Sheriff Mack is going to be in the House remotely next Tuesday, and then he'll be in the House live on May the 7th, and that's right here on the app as well. Also, next Wednesday night, just one day later, Sheriff Mack is the 5th of April. The 6th of April at 7 o'clock, we're going to have Jesse Rogers with us. Jesse's a big supporter of what we got going, founder of City Elders. Many of you know who he is. You do not want to miss that at all. And then next Sunday, we'll be in Woodward, Oklahoma, speaking at the Living Word Fellowship Church. Out there, if you're living in Western Oklahoma, come on out. Pastor Eric Cox is a great guy. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things, including what God's laid on my heart to share with the people. So I'm excited about that as well. And then that afternoon, we'll be doing a LaFleur County 2A meeting, Okmulgee County the following week. And we got a virtual town hall with Oklahoma State GOP Chairman and United States Congress candidate John Bennett. That's coming up on the 13th. So a lot of things. Let's scratch the surface. One more thing I'll throw out there at you. On May 21st, we're going to be bringing the one and only John Bevere into Norman, Oklahoma. So Norman, we love you. We're happy to be a service to you and bless you. And we're going to be specifically talking about some ways that we can stand up with you to tyranny tonight. And that's a big deal. So those are some updates and things. I want to encourage you once again to download the app during the virtual town hall session tonight. Please, I'll be monitoring the feed on Facebook. Submit your questions. We'll get those questions, keep them going. Share this feed far and abroad. We're being live streamed on a couple different platforms tonight. So make sure that you share. If you care. And if you care, we got to get involved, folks. And I appreciate you. Love you very much. My wife and I, we can't tell you how much we love you and care for you. We are one of you. Please keep us in your prayers. We ask you to do that. One thing that app does is it gives you an idea where we are, but it'll be on your phone every day. When you see our faces on that, I look pretty intense in the picture. I get it, but I smile a lot. But this is a serious moment, you guys. Seriously, we are in the middle of a war here. We just don't realize that Oklahoma has been traditionally red, but don't be fooled. It's becoming a tint of pink. I'm telling you right now, pay attention. Specifically with our guest tonight, he's going to tell you more about that because he is a high-ranking official in a certain area. Now, with that said, about a week ago, I was at the United States Capitol, and I was speaking about an issue that was very important to me and very important to a lot of Oklahomans. The overreach, mismanagement, lack of accountability, and the non-leadership in the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. As I stood there and spoke, I saw people around with glimmers of hope in their eyes. This was not a Republican, a Democrat deal at all. It was a people thing. Folks,
Absolutely.
we stood there, and I watched another gentleman come up, and I watched him pour out his heart because the turnpike was coming right through his ward, splitting families apart, taking land. We'll talk about that in just a moment. I had an 84-year-old grandma come up to me. She did. She came up, and I tell you, she had tears in her eyes, and she said, Mr. Sherwood, she said, will you help me? They're taking my land. And I said, yes, I will. And I meant what I said. And the man I met that day meant what he said too. The man I met that day, his name is Rarchar Tortorello.
Rarchar.
Rarchar, yes. And he is a city councilman in Norman, Ward 5, I believe. Did I get that correct?
Yes.
And he is the leader of Unite Norman. And I want him to talk more about that in a minute. But we became fast friends. He is a veteran, and he is got a heart of a warrior, and we connected immediately. So, Rarchar, thanks for joining me tonight and being with us. We appreciate it.
Dr. Sherwood, thank you for having us, and thank you for joining us. And on behalf of the city of Norman and Ward 5, Ward 6, and 8, where the turnpike is affecting thousands of families and thousands of people, I appreciate you taking time out tonight to host this virtual town hall and have this conversation. I think that with OTA's overreach, we're talking about, this is about we the people movement. When you have an agency like the OTA that has no accountability to the people, when we have elected officials that still cannot go and talk to the OTA, to listen to the people, to listen to their pleas, to stop this turnpike, then we have an issue. Talk about the constitutionality of ignoring the people's will. So a little over about a month and a half ago, OTA made the announcement that they were going to put a turnpike through Ward 5. This cuts down directly down the center of the ward, and so many people are upset. We've had a city council meeting this past Tuesday with OTA officials, and they did their best to answer our questions, but we still had that one option, which is the no turnpike option. We don't want the turnpike in Norman, Oklahoma. We don't need the turnpike in Norman, Oklahoma. If one house goes, that's one house too many. Now, I met you last week at the state capitol, and you spoke words to a lot of people that resonated with so many people. As I can see afterwards, you were shaking hands and talking to people. And I see that you are in a fight with us. So what brought you to the state capitol last week?
You know, when someone reached out to me from the Norman, it was a citizen actually, and she reached out and we had a conversation probably a week and a half before that. And Rarchar, she said, hey, listen, she goes, I know you don't live here, but this is what's going on. And my heart sank because she used the term, we are more than rooftops. And that hit me right in the square in the heart. And I said to her, listen to me clearly. I will do whatever I can, whatever's within my power to not just talk a good game, but to stand with you. And she replied with a question, do you mean it? And I said, I do mean that. I said, you'll find out I mean what I said. And she said, well, if I can arrange it, will you come down and speak to the crowd at the state capitol? Without hesitation, the answer was yes. And again, cleared my whole schedule, moved some things around, got there. And, again, I think it was a divine connection with you. So we became fast friends. And, I tell you, I saw the heartbeat of Oklahoma. I saw and heard the heartbeat of people. And I saw a unity and a passion that I have seen other places around the state of Oklahoma as I've talked. And if we can just pull this together, it's not about an election. It's about people. If we can pull this together, the people become powerful once again. And there's no turnpike that's going to come through if the people's voices get loud enough. I'm telling you, I know it. Absolutely. And we're starting to hear rumblings right now about maybe they're going to change the route. Did I hear that correctly?
There's been rumbling out there. We had an OTA board meeting, and 50 Norman residents showed up. And there was one in particular who stood out, Dr. Amy Serrato. She's also part of this grassroots organization, No More Turnpikes in Norman, and she delivered a compassionate, strong statement to OTA. And I think she received a standing ovation. In fact, her video has been passed around on Facebook. I think the views are beyond 1,000 views so far. So this is what it means when grassroots get together. And for clarification, regarding Unite Norman, I have stepped away from the board several months ago to focus my attention to my constituents. I just want to make that clarification. But this turnpike has woken up the people of Norman. And if you watched City Hall last Tuesday, you heard from every council member and the mayor that we are behind the turnpike. And they asked very good questions. OTA has not conducted any studies, environmental or animal or anything yet, but they decided, hey, we're going to come down and put this turnpike right here. And so this obviously has got so many people not just upset, the mental health, depression, anxiety, the fear of not knowing what's going to happen. So grassroots organization, I think by the last number on that Facebook page, we're probably well within 7,000 members in a matter of a month. Less than 30 days, 7,000 people. And I asked everyone who's watching this, if you're not already a member, to go to No More Turnpike and join that group, because they are fighting for our rights. They're fighting for you, just as we are fighting for you on this side as well. So yes, bad things happen, but then good things happen that you and I were brought together. And we had an interesting conversation Monday about our values and how they're aligned. You are for the people. So I want to ask you, how did you realize that the people were more important than the politicians?
I got to tell you, and by the way, it was Amy Serrato who reached out to me originally.
Was it Amy?
There you go.
Good.
Amy
Awesome.
is a patriot, man. Just people, if Amy's on that Facebook group, and she is, I'm telling you, listening right now, you need to reach out to her and absolutely congratulate her, thank her, give her kudos for that. When I was looking back at medical tyranny, my wife and I have been fighting medical tyranny for a long, long time. The idea that people didn't have any choices. They go to the doctor and they were given one option. And I use the analogy of a doctor having only a hammer. When you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And that's not true, because everything's not a nail. We're all individual people. But we were put to the test back in March 2020. And when COVID came upon us, and it was fear that was broadcast, Rarchar. It was fear. I heard fear from politicians. I heard fear from pretty much every government official, every church official, and every medical official. And it didn't feel right. It didn't sit right. And at that moment in time, I began to dig a little deeper and look outside and inside. And I'll tell you, and people know the story, God began to speak to me and basically was saying, what are you doing complaining about it? What are you doing about it? You're fighting here, but why don't you go fight there too? So it was like this urge to go push. Some would say it's a burning bush moment that I didn't want to see, didn't want to hear, didn't want to experience at all. But I realized that politics were broken. I realized that there was corruption. And I got to tell you, the more I've got into it and traveled around the state of Oklahoma, the corruption runs deep. It's a good old boy system. For those that may not know about the turnpike system, it's $1.7 billion in debt.
Right.
$1.7 billion. I think there's 2 turnpikes in the state that are even making any money. We all remember the time when we were told, at least I do, you do, when the turnpike's paid off, we're going to pull up the toll gates. And everybody chuckles and laughs. Well, that was a big fat lie. And right now, through this process that the OTA has, they're able to go out there and literally borrow more money to build a road, to take people's lands. Yeah, they pay them money, but it's borrowed money, and then build a road to collect on that to try to pay off past debt. So it's no more than a shell game. It's almost like a Ponzi scheme. It's like a credit card, getting a credit card, another credit card to pay off a credit card, paying less than minimum balance. It needs to stop. It needs to stop yesterday.
Absolutely.
And we can do better than that. There's got to be, I think. So all that said, long answer to a short question. It was a journey, and I knew I had to step up. And it's been a blessing, man. I got to meet people like you and the people of Oklahoma, and we are rallying the troops.
That we are. You know, I retired from the Air Force in 2007. I thought I would just live my life efficient and just doing nothing. And, you know, it's like the politicians, like you said, they just pull you back in. But, you know, one thing we have in common that you mentioned earlier is that you and I, we're not statesmen. I mean, we're not politicians. We're statesmen.
That's right.
Right. And the problem with the system now, we have too many politicians who make it a lifelong career. That was my mistake. We are statesmen.
Yeah.
But the politicians, the political class, they have made it a lifelong endeavor to stay in that sphere of theirs, and they just don't have, they're tone deaf, right? Mm-hmm. And they don't listen to what the people are saying. And that's what brought me to represent my ward and run. You know, there was a part of the constituent that needed representation, and I ran. And after, you know, being on council and since being sworn in July of last year, you know, this is a nonpartisan issue. City council is nonpartisan. This turnpike is nonpartisan because it affects both Democrats, independents, and Republicans the same way. Everyone is being affected. And so, you know, it's like fighting this war. I like that analogy is that, you know, let's slip the dogs of war. You know, they brought the fight to us, and with everyone's help, the grassroots movement, your help, my help, you know, let's take the war to OTA, you know, let them hear our voice. And I think that they are starting to listen. If what happened at the OTA board meeting this week isn't indicative of the people's voice and their actions here, just wait. We still have the entire summer to go. And until 1 square foot of dirt is moved, we have the tactical advantage, and we're going to use it. And I'm glad that you are with us. And when I heard you speak last week, and everyone, you know, we have a warrior in our midst, and warrior to warrior, thank you for joining this fight. I appreciate it. City of Norman appreciates it, and Ward 5 appreciates it.
Well, we see as we've traveled around the heartbeat in the hearts of Oklahomans. We're a unique group. We're a state that has a wonderful heritage. We have relationship with the tribes that was an Indian state. We see on our flag, you know, the olive branch and the peace pipe crossed. And it's a shame that that relationship has been severed as it has. And we believe that that will be repaired again. And a lot of people, and I want to stay on this issue of Norman, because I think it's critically important, because it's not just about Norman. Other turnpikes are planned around the state as well. And Absolutely. The same thing can happen to other people. So you right now and me right now and all the people in Norman, I love the crowd you got behind you as well. They're awesome. I love their shirts, right? But the idea is we're fighting for other people in Oklahoma right now who have no idea that their homes and their families, their livelihoods, their land, their memories are at risk. Rarchar, tell everyone the eminent domain story, and because they didn't give you guys much notice in that. Talk through that a little bit so people understand what they say they can do.
So the legal process known as eminent domain is where the state, the government, has the legal right to take away your property. It's the last resort in their toolkit, but nonetheless, if you don't want to sell or refuse to give up your property, they can use this legal maneuvering term called eminent domain and force you off your property. At my town hall last month, or earlier this month, we had an Iraqi war vet who said he would protect his home with his Second Amendment rights. And so when you have people so passionately against this evilness called eminent domain, where there's no oversight, it's part of the Constitution, it's been ruled by the Supreme Court and then affirmed by the Supreme Court, to use this tool to force people from their homes. This goes back to the days of fighting for our rights. What happened to we the people? We the people have the right to say no to eminent domain.
Yep.
No, you can't take our property. And yes, we will fight you. That is our obligation. If they think we're going to sit idly and allow this to happen, they've got something else coming. So,
yeah, see, you're right. Because let's walk through this, ladies and gentlemen. You hear us talk a lot about the amendments. The First Amendment says you have the right of speech, you have the right of religion, you have the right to peaceably assemble like we're doing tonight, right? You've got a great group peaceably assembling. You can protest if you want to, as long as you don't destroy property. You can do that. You can also protect your property. That is a right we have. And you have the right to protect your property with your arms, because the Second Amendment clearly states that the militia, the people, have the right to keep and bear arms, and that will not be infringed. Now, we've seen that thing be infringed, and I agree with you.
yeah.
And that's why Sheriff Mack is coming to town in part to talk about this constitutional right we have, because when we empower the sheriffs and give them confidence again, the sheriffs speak for the people of those counties. And this is what I see eventually. If the city of Norman does not want this to happen, it will not happen, because there's no government authority that's going to come down there and try to take on all those Iraqi vets and you and me. They're not going to do it, because they're going to have to take their bulldozers and run over people, and they're going to have to run over guns. And I think the bully that is the federal government, the bully that is the state government, will back down the challenge. You know, I feel like the voice of the people of Oklahoma, Rarchar, is the voice of David. They just need a little confidence. They need to step up and never back down at all, because this whole idea of eminent domain, it could be stopped, correct, by our governor and the legislature. Isn't that right?
Absolutely, it can be. This turnpike can be stopped by the governor. And I asked him, you know, I said this last week, you know, you grew up in Norman, these are your people, you know, help us save your people. You know, the alternative is that every one of us, look, Ward 5, rural, it's out in the country. We're out there because we want peace and quiet. We don't want the hustle and bustle of cars coming down a mile away from my house all day, all night. We want the peace and quiet out there. Now it's gone, potentially. I heard talk on the Facebook page. It's been chattered that some people have lost hope. I'm telling you guys right now, if you're watching this, if you're watching the replay tonight or tomorrow, do not lose hope. You lose hope. If you lose hope, then we cannot fight this war. This is a war like any other war that generations before us have fought. World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Korea, Gulf War I, Gulf War II, Iraq, Afghanistan. People have died overseas in faraway lands to preserve our freedom, to fight for your freedom. We are not going to let them die in vain if we don't protect the freedoms we have here. And we have a piece of paper that enshrines that forever. So I'm asking Ward 5, the Facebook groups, do not lose hope. That is the first thing the enemy wants us to do. Lose hope, all hope is lost. Nothing goes forward. So stay the course. Stay the course. Do not lose hope, because we will win this. I have everything in my bone, everything in my body, my intellect, my spirit, God's words. We will win this, but we can only do it if we stick together and fight the government. Stop OTA, stop the turnpike. And it's not a matter of kicking it down to a different location, because all we're doing is passing it along to somebody else. We don't want them to have the same fight that we're going to prevent. If we can stop the turnpike and return power back to the people, the process, make it transparent, then we've won. You had mentioned earlier the number of turnpikes proposed in the state of Oklahoma. What was that number again?
I don't recall the exact number, but I know that we've only had 2 so far that are making any money. The rest of them are a loss. And I think Kilpatrick makes a little money down there near you. But the bottom line is we're still net loss upon net loss upon net loss. Anytime you do a business deal like that, ladies and gentlemen, that's a bad deal. And I get it. The idea behind it is we want to build infrastructure and they want to take that land and put in some commercial property around there and build businesses. But Rarchar and ladies and gentlemen, hear our hearts. When business becomes more valuable than people, that is clearly the love of money. When the love of money becomes the driving force, the love of people becomes secondary. And we got to get the love of people back. And when we do, we will get our country back. And I really echo what you said. For those people that don't understand what we're talking about, the ODOT, the Oklahoma Department of Transportation, and the OTA, they were separate at one time. And now our administration put them together, one person over both of those. So when you have this centralized, large growth of power, you create the synergy of potential abuse. And the abuse gets bigger as the power gets more. And the lack of accountability with that is extraordinary. I mean, I don't know about you, but it seems like a bad idea to me to be borrowing money to build roads with gas prices going up to $4, $5, $6 a gallon. People are going to bypass those things. I mean, that's a fool's gold waiting to happen, and it makes no sense to me. It doesn't meet the rational test. And so I'm with you. I think if the people's voice stand up and we speak together, not only will we stop the OTA, but we will return freedom to our land. Freedom is not a spectator sport, is it? It's a get in the game and get involved, isn't it?
Right. Absolutely. You know what? When I mentioned that we've lost people overseas in faraway lands, this has always been a spectator sports. If we sit aside and let the politicians make decisions for us, we've lost our country. And this is why I'm fighting to help take it back. This is why you're fighting to help take it back, because truly the people should be in charge of the legislature. If we can't talk to our state representatives right now and ask them to stop the OTA, that makes us powerless. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how we ever came to a situation where our elected officials, and we are a representative form of government, we understand that, but they can't go to OTA and say, stop this or explain this to us, open your books, show us some transparency. That is a problem for me, for you, for everyone in this room, for everyone in Norman, that we cannot allow this to continue. So the citizens, this is what your job is to participate in the process. Join us in the process. This is the only way we can take back our state and eventually our country. I believe that. Do you guys believe that?
Yeah, you're right. And when we were there at the Capitol, there were several hundred people there. And I heard the voices. I listened to the cheers. I saw the tears, Rarchar. I saw the tears in people. I saw the passion rise up. But I didn't see the senators. I didn't see the House of Representatives. I didn't see them among us. I heard people calling them. I heard people say, where are you? They were calling people by names, but they weren't there. And I found that very sad. And we've got to get back to where we, the people, begins to make we the decisions once again. The people of Norman don't want that. The people of Norman have the right to say no. The right to say no. And I want to kind of, maneuver this in an area that is tangential to our discussion, Rarchar. There's a lot of people right now through all kinds of circumstances we've already been through in our country, world, and state. And right now in the middle of Norman and even across Oklahoma, there's a lot of people that have fear and anxiety because they, as you said earlier, they've lost hope. You talk to your constituents. What are you seeing out there? And what are you hearing from them?
So most of you may not know this, but I appeal disability claims for the Veterans Administration. And most of my claimants are experiencing PTSD and depression and anxiety from past wars, Vietnam, Korea, several. And the Gulf Wars and Iraq and Afghanistan. The symptoms that they are telling me are exactly the same as my soldiers, airmen, sailors, and seamen who experienced combat. You may not understand this, OTA, but what you're doing is that you're fighting with your own people. This is what you're doing. You're bringing a war, a conflict to them. And right now in the grief, the stages of grief, they're bargaining, and they're bargaining to save their homes and to save their livelihoods and to save their way of life. You have put them unnecessarily in harm's way because they are getting depressed. I've seen the symptoms. I get these calls, I get emails and text messages like, I'm afraid. I don't know what to do. It feels like I've been diagnosed with death. I'm just waiting for it to happen. You know, OTA, ODOT, what you created is a whole, at least 10,000 people in Ward 5, 16,000 people, the entire city of Norman with relatives who are going to be impacted, not just with the Ward 5 Turnpike, but with the East, West Indian Hills Turnpike. These folks are going through a stage where they may never recover. They may never recover. They're going to have PTSD for the rest of their lives. That is no different than our soldiers under combat being fired upon, coming back from the war, having these memories. They're reliving these memories. Triggers happen all the time with veterans. We live near an Air Force base, and so we have these conversations. Everyone knows at least one veteran who's got PTSD, depression, or anxiety from the wars. Now it's happening in our civilian population. It's happening, and it didn't need to happen. So I see that this conversation about the mental health part, it needs to happen because these people need to understand that they are not alone. You know, I would like to put resources out there and get free clinics to open up and talk to my constituents, have that one-on-one conversation and talk it out. The churches, they're probably doing this now, but I think we're going to have this town, if this goes through, let's say it stops. Let's say we stop it. They're still going to be suffering from PTSD, depression, and anxiety. It's going to happen. Any triggers, anything about turnpikes in different counties, it's going to bring back those memories that we're facing today. And the longer this happens, the worse it gets. Okay. And I care about their mental health. I care about them. And we just can't sit back and allow this to happen. Now, with your medical background, you know, what symptoms are these people experiencing? I mean, have you seen this in your practice?
Yeah, so it's interesting. And just a quick reminder, want people to download the app. It looks like this right here. Just make sure if you're enjoying this, you want to go to Sherwood 2022 and make sure right now, those of you that are watching and I'm monitoring these, keep populating your questions in here. I appreciate that. You're doing a really good job. Keep them coming. Keep sharing this. Share, share, share. This is very important, what we've said and what we're getting ready to say right now, because the question is about what I've seen regarding mental health issues. I'm a former police officer. I was on the SWAT team for 10 years. I know that the idea of post-traumatic stress disorder is real. Whether you're military, first responder, the things you see, the things you experience, you ought to never see those things. You can't get them out of your head. Mm-hmm. I have seen people blow their brains out right in front of me, and I can't get those images out of my head. I can't get them out because that's people. I watched, even my own mother, commit suicide. Now, hear my heart with this. The third leading cause of death or associated co-morbid condition, as we call them, towards mortality to COVID-19 was fear or anxiety disorders. How many knew that? And so we need to understand that it's not just about military anymore. It's about people. We are being bombarded with the scourge of fear. It is a stench to your soul. When you live in perpetual fear, and that's all you hear, it crushes your immune system. You cannot fight diseases anymore. It crushes your psyche. It crushes your soul. You have no ability to get up in the morning and face the day because you think you've lost hope. And you can't get away from the past because the past has got you so weighted down. And the past is created by your presence right now. And what you're talking about, Rarchar, is an experience that the people of Norman will never forget. They'll never forget this. And it will go on and on and on. And here's what we've told people as we've worked with them. And you're right, there needs to be more resources out there. We've told them to begin to understand a couple things. One, things you cannot control. Two, those things you can control. And we've told them to look at the person back at themselves in the mirror and tell that person every day, make the pledge of commitment that you're going to care for that person, you're going to love that person, and that's the person you have control over. We teach them that fear, many times, false evidence appearing real. And we teach them the difference between reality and the past memories that may imagine, these what if scenarios that go on. And you're right, it's a tragedy. We have seen our health decline in the state. We are now 48th in the United States, 48th in health, 47th in education. I think health and education probably go together, don't they? And so
absolutely,
that is pathetic. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be a top 10 state in mental health. I want to be number one. I want to be number one in everything. And I want to have a number one out there that's so number one, it sets out a whole new scale that we're weighing it by. And you are right, so poignantly described. People of Norman need hope. And man, I tell you, if we can just get them to listen to this tonight, just a little bit of hope. It's like a little bit of momentum. It builds up, and it's like this flood that comes up in your soul, and it'll drive you onwards. And
absolutely,
I think this can be something that can get people out of the pits of depression, get them into maybe a palace of hope for a change, right?
Absolutely. I think in the next couple of months, if not soon, we might need a celebration just to get people's minds off the turnpike, just if not for 8 hours, barbecue. And, I'm asking people out there in Ward 5 and all of Norman, we should find a day sometime here in the next couple of weeks, if not the next 30 days. We all get out and have street barbecues, meet your neighbors, talk to each other. This is what my grandparents used to do in the old days. In fact, they would invite people into their homes. My grandparents in Chicago would never lock their doors. And my other grandparents in Osceola, Wisconsin, always had an open door policy where neighbors would come in for coffee and talk. I think Norman needs one of those just on the streets, barbecue, hot dogs, hamburgers, talking to each other. One thing about Oklahoma, and I'm a transplant, I'm an immigrant coming to this country. I was born and raised in Germany. And what made me decide after retiring from the military in 2007, I had the option of moving back to Germany. They would pack my stuff and send us all back to my hometown or anywhere in the world that I chose. I kept deferring it, but it came to a point where I just realized that out of all my travels, everywhere around the world, I just couldn't find a better breed of people than Oklahomans, man. I'm telling you what, right? The tornadoes I got here in 93, 94, I've witnessed Oklahomans banding together, helping each other out. I was one of the first responders down to Murrah bombing. And, when we had our counterparts from New York, the firefighters, and when everything was running perfectly, the Red Cross, the volunteers, they were so amazed at the generosity and the teamwork displayed by Oklahomans, where they would just, hey, I need something to drink. I'm hungry. 6 or 7 volunteers would rush to them and give them drinks and food and put them to a cot. During the First World Trade Building bombing, they were price gouged. They had to buy their own stuff. Oklahoma, they were given this stuff. And this is why we fight for Oklahomans, because I gave away my driver's license to the state of Texas, where I joined the military. So I got an Oklahoma driver's license now. So it makes me an Okie. So I'm one of you. So, I am helping. I am fighting. We are fighting for our fellow Oklahomans here because they expect us to do this. And I am confident that when this movement goes further than Norman, than Oklahoma City, it will reach every corner of Oklahoma, just like everyone coming from every corner of Oklahoma, coming to Oklahoma City to help with the bombing or the tornadoes. They will come out. They will support us. They will join us because this is modern day tyranny.
Yeah.
There's no other way you can say it. The mental health aspect, I think it would be great if you and I can come up with a resource, a bunch of doctors who will talk to our citizens for free, just 30 minutes, work with the churches, work with these professionals, the psychiatrists, psychologists, and say, here's a place you can go. Here's a number you can call and get an appointment, make an appointment, sit down with somebody. But if you can't do that, this is one thing we should work for. If you can't do that, do what you always have done. My citizens, my fellow citizens, talk to each other, check in with each other, ask how you're doing. That's what we've always done. And I'm pretty sure it's happening now, but I have to say it. Check on your neighbors, check on your family, ask how they're doing. That will save someone's life. It would be a shame to hear a tragedy because of the turnpike. And as soldiers and airmen and Marines and seamen, we know what happens when all hope is lost and you're depressed, you got PTSD and anxiety, you feel that you're alone, things happen. And we want to make sure that everyone has hope. Just talk to your friends and family, reach out to them, ask them how they're doing, invite them over for coffee or sandwiches here, because you could be saving your neighbor's life. You never know this. So this is the Oklahoma standard, okay? And God, I am so glad that we are having this conversation, Mark. This is bringing back a lot of memories of my days in the military. And it seems like, this is one gigantic happy squadron, one gigantic happy base where everyone is looking out for everyone. And we have one mission. And that one mission is to stop the turnpike.
Yeah, and I'm looking behind you, and I see all those red shirts. For those of you that don't know, that you're seeing on the screen right now, those red shirts, those are actually our campaign shirts. They're awesome, and they've got they're really in honor of the Constitution, because the diagram is, and you can see those on the website. The diagram is shaped like a flag, and the flag, the horizontal stripes are actually guns. So people appreciate those things. So get yourself a shirt if you want to and support that. Rarchar, there's a couple of questions on here, and I think I'm going to just ask the question. You can take the first shot and I'll take the second, right?
Go ahead.
We'll just shotgun this thing. First of all, when you talk about the idea of tolls, we were all told that we would be able to pull the toll gates out when the road was paid for. Let's say we stop the Turnpike Authority from doing this. Get it completely restructured, bring some accountability. How can we pay for the roads? Ideas?
That's a tough question. So, they sell bonds for the purpose of selling debt. And so when we sell bonds as a state, even OTA, we have to make sure those bondholders are taken care of, or we can get sued. I'm not sure about the legal ramifications of stopping the tolls and who is on the hook for the bonds, but I believe that I think the taxpayers of Oklahoma would be on the hook for the bonds if they defaulted. I'm not sure on that. I can check that out, but normally that's what happens. What do you think? Is that are we on the hook for the bonds if they default?
I would think so, and I've thought about that a lot, and people that know me very well, I come up with ideas. Now, do the ideas always become the idea? No. But do the ideas always promote thoughts that the idea is birthed from? Many, many times, yes. So what I think about this is that when we have these tolls, I think there needs to be a sunset clause put on them, like right now. Stop them at this point. And we're going to be transparent with that about Oklahoma. Oklahomans are honest people. If you were to say to Oklahomans, for example, we're going to cause these tolls to be on these roads. We're going to hold this turnpikes. We're not going to build anymore because we're way out of hand. We've already lost the war here. So we're going to stop it, and we're going to give it 5 years here. So Oklahomans, I'm asking you, let's use those tolls as you want to over the next 5 years, because in 5 years they're going to come off, and then we're going to be honest with you. We're going to make these annual or semi-annual reports. that says this is how we're doing. We're going to make them public so you and we will know. And we're going to come up with other solutions along the way because it's going to buy us some time. So a sunset clause, you buy some time, you try to come up with other funding options. Now, we have been notoriously in this country overtaxed. Everybody knows that. You know, you pay all these taxes federally and state income tax and property tax, and I mean, on and on and on and on and on. But I think people understand if you give them a reason and you say, these are our roads, we would like to get these things paid off. And we're going to charge this tax for this amount of time. And we're going to be honest with you. And we believe that this is going to be calculated, that it's going to pay off these roads, and we're going to have the ability to maintain these roads through our sources. And I think a plan that's comprehensive along all those lines would be very helpful as at least a starting discussion point.
Absolutely. Thoughts? No, I love that thought. You know, I was stationed in Kentucky for 4 years, and I learned that they had a sunset clause on their turnpike program. And so they did their turnpikes, and they promised the people that after the bonds were paid, no more tolls would be collected, and the tolls, the pike would be returned to the Department of Transportation for Kentucky. And I can't see why Oklahoma can't do that. It's the schemes, you know, it's a Ponzi scheme that we have here in Oklahoma. It's what it seems like. Everyone who's talked to me says, you know what? It seems like we're building more turnpikes to continuously pay off bond debt, and it'll keep going forever. And I like the idea of having a conversation around what we just discussed, because that's a starting point. And at least we're having that conversation, because I tell you what, everyone watching this, our citizens, our constituents are having the same conversation too. It's like, you know, how do we stop this? And that's a great place to have that conversation. So, you know, good points.
Yeah, another question on here, and I think this is interesting. Rhonda, you asked this one. Thank you. I appreciate it. Who gave these agencies all this control with no oversight? No one really has an answer to this. You go first, Rarchar.
Well, hang on. An Excel spreadsheet just came up on my computer. Hang on, there we go.
Yeah. So what's your thoughts on that? Who gave all the control and power to these people anyway?
You know, it's the state legislature. It's in statute that they have the authority to do this. This is why Norman, when the turnpike was first announced, I asked our lawyers, our legal team, do we have legal standing to stop? Do we have legal standing to stop this? And pretty much the answer is that by statute, OTA has the right to do this. And so as a city, there's not much we can do to stop that. I find that absolutely abhorrent that a city cannot stop this turnpike, but equally so that a state agency with no accountability or oversight can make these decisions without a challenge from the people. Now, I know they will have their town halls that they have scheduled for the next month, but they will never answer the question. And we need to ask the question to our state representatives, how did we get to a point where we have a state agency that has no accountability to your elected officials and the citizens? That's the question that we need to ask. And that's the conversation we need to start with, is how did we get here? Once we figure that out, then we need to do something to change our state's constitution, to remove that and return that back to the people to make those decisions. And if the very least, the very minimum, allow us to veto it. If they come by with hey, we want to put a turnpike here in Ward 5, you know what? Let's take it to a vote of the people, and and then we can veto it as we can, as we should. So it's a great starting point for that conversation. What say you?
Yeah, a couple things. Your legislatures, both your representatives and your senators, the people of Oklahoma vote them in. Our jobs are to understand the people, that the people we vote in work for us. They do not work for anybody else. They work for us. And so we need to put so much pressure on them and demand accountability. That is important. So when you have an executive branch, in this case, when I become the next governor, I'm going to step up on behalf and speak up on behalf unashamedly, unapologetically for the people. Now, the people are going to get fired up because they know their voices are heard, because we're going to broadcast and we're going to echo their voices. That's all I'm going to do is echo the people's heart. And I think people need to know that. That in turn is going to put so much pressure on those legislatures. They are going to propose the bills. They're going to present the bills. They're going to vote on the bills, and they're going to put those bills on my desk, and I'm going to sign them to give the power back to the people. Secondly, behind that, our Constitution has not been revisited in probably many decades. It is time to have a constitutional convention in Oklahoma to revisit and clean up some of that language and make it right. Make it what the people want, not what Washington wants, not what the politicians want, but what the people want. And I think, again, those are some things that we need to understand. Here's an interesting question, off topic, but nonetheless is pretty good. What will you do to stop Chinese growers taking over rural Oklahoma? Rarchar.
You need to answer that, because I think that's an interesting question, and you're more involved in that than I am, but you can take the shot at that one.
Yeah, so thank you for asking. Who asked this? Jan, thank you for the question, Jan. So we know that there's a loophole in the law that allows a person who might not be an Oklahoma or even a United States citizen to have a majority ownership in land in Oklahoma. Thank you to our glorious legislatures once again. The law also gives these growers the order to erect a 6-foot fence around the front of that property so you can't see in. Now, I don't know what rocket scientists came up with that law, but why wouldn't you want to see in? Also, we understand that the sheriffs just can't go in there and do a routine inspection like you could a bar, for example. So I want to make sure we empower the sheriffs, encourage the sheriffs to open up active investigations, get the law changed. We can go in and inspect those things anytime you want, close the loopholes within the law so that cannot happen. I believe that prosecutions will take place. I believe that there will be probable causes for many crimes that will be acted upon. Arrests will be made for things such as drug trafficking, weapons trafficking, and even child sex trafficking. And when we do, people will go to jail. The land will be held as evidence. The Chinese ownership will leave and go back to their communist country they came from, or go to some other state, maybe California. And that land, in turn, will be back in charge of the state. It will be auctioned off, I believe, eventually, back into the hands of Oklahomans. So that's what I see happening, quite honestly.
Well, you're the expert. I'm not too familiar with that. Only briefly was exposed to it when we spoke Monday. So I'm going to have to leave it at that. But I'm going to circle back to something you brought up earlier about the county sheriffs and something you had proposed. What was your idea when you had mentioned that the city of Norman should propose an ordinance change to prevent or stop the OTA and use the county sheriffs to enforce that? How would that work?
I believe that by the Constitution, as evidenced by Sheriff Mack and Sheriff Prince, and I believe the state of Arizona, suing the federal government, and they won. I've got that in my briefcase with me now, the whole language. The sheriff is the highest law enforcement officer in that county. So I believe the sheriff, by Constitution, and again, we need to really make sure we know what we're doing, but if the sheriff is representing the citizens of that county, the sheriff could stop any action from the federal government, the state government, and say, sorry, you don't have any authority here. I believe that is the law. I believe that is the Constitution, and I believe that would stand up. Now, the problem with all this today is, again, as we said at the top of the discussion, people are not really familiar with the Constitution. Even our officials are not familiar with it. So I do think that is an angle we want to look at. That puts the power back in the people's hands, kind of we talked about. So that's what I would like to see once again occur.
Okay, absolutely. Okay. You answered the Chinese question. I couldn't answer that, but any other questions?
Yeah, there's one more on here. How can the How can ODOT hold your tags until you pay your debt to the turnpike? How does the states enforce a debt to a private property? That's a very good question. Private business.
It is. That is a very good question. I can't believe that they can actually do that, but I've heard they can. So again, that's another change in the law that we need to look at. If that is indeed the case, and they have so much power, which is all the more reason to look at the Constitution and change the language to put it in favor and back into the people's hands and their decision. Again, that is something that is going back to what we discussed, a tyranny, when the government, the state, can do that to its own citizens. We need to look at the Constitution as a people and change that. I think that can be done. I mean, we discussed this before. A lot of folks have discussed this. Stan Ward, a prominent attorney in Norman, has discussed that, do an initiative petition to make these changes to the state's constitution. I think that's a worthwhile endeavor as a long-term strategy to enact these changes that would remove that power from ODOT or any state agency for that matter. That is something that we need to look at, promote, and support. It's going to take a lot of effort, time, and money. But again, in the long run, if it returns power back to the people, this is the right course of action. That's what I believe.
Yeah, that's a terrific answer. I agree with you thoroughly in that 1,000%. When you're talking about the state holding a fee over your head for what you did on private property or private business is a little bit awkward. I think that there needs to be pushback on that. There needs to be legislative change, constitutional change, and certainly people got to get confident again to step up and challenge things. We have just, if the government says it, if the Supreme Court says it, I'm going to do it. Again, there comes a time to turn the other cheek, but there comes a time to face up and step up and fight for your rights. And we can't be passive all the time. And this is one area we can't. Just one more question here. And there's a comment here on McGirt. I'll say something about that in the closing remarks very briefly. Jan, thank you for that. Comment: the federal Congress stopped funding to federal highways significantly in the 70s after the authors wrote about lobbying and political landscape. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe you can clarify that. The same person comments on the idea of strong townsmanship. And I think that's what you're talking about, Rarchar and Norman, right? Stepping up as a town, stepping up as that citizenry, right? And pushing back.
Absolutely here. I think we're stronger as a city. And that concept has been around for a long time. And, I was just reintroduced to it when I joined city council, that we believe in strong towns, economics, social issues. When people band together, and this is a concept that we're going to be talking about throughout this campaign against OTA, is that we stick together and work together as a team, as a people, that makes us strong. There's a reason why we have a standing army that's able to fight two wars at the same time, is because they are working together in concert with one objective, okay, which is to protect our freedoms. And Norman, the third largest city in the state of Oklahoma, is showing the entire state which way to go. And I'm so proud at the city of Norman. I'm so proud of my fellow council members and my mayor for stepping up and joining us in one voice, unified voice, that we will fight this together.
Yeah.
The fact that
I think just to echo your thought there, Rarchar, it has been so awesome to see. I'm not from Norman, but I will tell you, I see the pride of Oklahoma stepping up in Norman as an example for what all of us can do. There's a lot of groups around Oklahoma that are fighting and standing for things. Everywhere you go, there's an issue that's more important to somebody else, but we're in these issues, these fights together. And because the battle against ODOT has become so public now,
right,
I think that it's fascinating to watch. It's put some fuel in the gas tanks to create fire, to generate freedom for the citizens of Oklahoma. So I just really, really enjoyed it. To create fire.
Hold on a second. I hit the wrong button here. All right.
There you go. Yeah, it's just a button.
Hey, someone take this phone away before I get.
So, just a couple of things. There's a lot of questions on here. I encourage people to keep asking. We'll do our best to go in here and answer the questions in the feed here. So keep sharing, keep going. Rarchar, this has been amazing. I cannot wait for May 7th. Again, that's going to be an incredible event. Last couple minutes here before we give our final remarks, final words from you.
You know what? We have a celebrity here, Dave Moore. Dave, where are you at, sir? Dave Moore, he fought the Turnpike back in the 90s, and he won. He was part of that team, Robin Stead and Tom Elmore. These groups, these guys fought this back in the 1990s, 1999, and they won. And he has been a terrific asset. And he brought up something that I couldn't say, didn't have time to speak to the other night, but I was hoping you might want to answer it. The Republican platform talks about turnpikes in eminent domain. Are you familiar with that? If the people don't want this, if they say no?
It's interesting. I was talking to Daniel Navejas by text message just today, and I've got our GOP platform right here on my cell phone. I really do. And I was reading it again today on the plane. And I asked him, I said, has something changed? Has something's changed? He goes, nope, the same thing. And so, yeah, you're right. We just have gotten so far off, and it's grievous to me. This is where we have to hold our elected officials accountable. You know, if you say you're going to be a Republican, be a Republican. But most of all, as you said at the top of the hour, be a statesman, be a representative of the people, man. If you want to claim Republican, let that R be representative, please, just do that. So yeah, I think you nailed it right there. You did.
Well, he nailed that. He brought that up tonight. He brought it up early this week, and I just wanted to give props out to him and the rest of the No More Turnpike leadership and the volunteers and in Ward 5. And you know, I'm so proud at what we're doing and why we're doing this. This is, I don't want to give my closing remarks because I'll give that to you first. And I'm happy that you're here with us and you're joining the fights. We couldn't have a better ally at this moment in time. So. That's right. So do you, Dr. Sherwood, first, sir.
I am honored and privileged to be with all of you tonight. I encourage you with all of my heart. My wife is, she's with me here, not on camera, but she's with me all the time. We're in this for you. This is not about us. The ODOT, you know, it is a tough issue. We're going to fight back. We're going to win. The freedoms and liberties that have been eroded away, we're going to fight back. We're going to win. The land that's been taken away from us by loopholes, big business people, we're going to fight back. We're going to win. The idea of abortion on demand should never be occurring in Oklahoma. We're going to fight back and we're going to win. The idea that our politicians don't know the Constitution at all and they value business over people, we're going to fight back on that as well, and we're going to win. Share these videos. Share, and make your comments. The McGirt issue, I said to make one comment on that. The courts have spoken with the Article 5 or 6 of the United States Constitution talks about treaties being the supreme law of the land. I've talked to the tribal leaders, about probably 8 or 10 of them so far. All of them say, we just want to work together. We're all Oklahomans. So from a law enforcement standpoint, I don't see it being a prosecution nightmare. We can work together. And I've got some experience in that because when I was working in law enforcement, I dealt with the cross-deputization with the light horsemen and the tribal police. So the cross-deputization, cross-training, we can do this. We just have to look at a problem not as a problem, but as a potential solution. So let's make Oklahoma better than it's ever been before, better than it can ever be. And let's shine the light around these United States and show the whole country what the people can do if the people stand together. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. That was great. I want to say to my fellow Normanites and our guest tonight, Mrs. Mayor, City Council members, the Ward 5, everyone in Norman. I retired in 2007. I've been in the fight for a long time, and I've seen a lot of bad things. I've seen a lot of good things. And one thing that I see that's parallel to what I see during my time in the military is that when crisis occurs, like what we're facing now, this fight, I see people joining together, banding, unifying for one single cause. And that cause is, yeah, it's related around the turnpike, but it's about freedom. It's about accountability to the state, to the government. And at the end of the day, this is what we're fighting for. And so if you're watching this tonight live, I know there are comments on the Facebook page, and I'll get to them as quickly as possible. This is a fight for freedom. This is a fight for every right of every Oklahoman, every Normanite to have a decision in their destiny to say, we do not want this. You do not have our consent, and we will fight this. And I think that's important for everyone watching tonight and in the replays, that I don't want you losing hope, you know? When all hope is lost, then we have lost. The reason we're fighting, even if we lose this, at least we fought. You know, if we didn't fight and this went through, that's on us. That's something we have to live with. And I don't think anyone here tonight or watching, that's not an option. The option is to fight. And I'm asking that everyone who is not with us on the Facebook group, we need numbers. We need more people to join. We need phone calls made, letters written, email sent, door knocking at the state capitol, talking to every politician that we know and saying in one voice that we will not go down without a fight. That we will not go quiet in the night. That if you confront us with something that is against our wishes, against what we want, we will stand up as a people. We will stand up as a citizen, and we will fight to protect what is ours. Eminent domain, you can go to hell. All right. So with that, I appreciate everyone tuning in tonight. Great questions that we've answered so far, and I'll be answering questions on my Facebook pages too as well. And let's two action items I think we needed to take away from this. I think we need, as a Norman, as a community, to plan a citywide barbecue in the next 30 days, 45 days, and just focus on fellowship, focus on enjoying ourselves and our families. And Dr. Sherwood, I would like your help in setting up a resource for Norman to talk to mental health professionals. I think that is a resource that we desperately need at this point, just so people have someone to talk to. So I appreciate your efforts tonight. I appreciate you reaching out to me last week. I appreciate our conversation. I feel that I am on the right path, and I feel that I have the right people behind me, and I feel that I have the right leaders walking beside me. And I thank you for agreeing to host this with me tonight. And I look forward to our many conversations as we walk down this path of not just fighting the turnpike, but for Oklahoma back to the people.
Yeah. Well, I think that is the best way that we could say, see you later for tonight. Folks, just a reminder to stay fired up, stay fed up, but keep your head up along the way, and don't lose faith, don't lose hope. You heard it tonight. Share this this replay later on, go to our app, Sherwood 2022. It looks like this right here. You've seen me talk about this. Never bow down to tyrants, defy them. You'll find out where we are. You'll find out about the town halls next week with Sheriff Mack, with Jesse Rogers as well. And you can see where we're going to be live. You can see Rarchar and I in person on May the 7th. And when we have the barbecue and all of this in Norman,
You're invited.
Invite myself. So there you go. I will be there.
You have an open invitation.
I love it. Well, folks, the Lord bless you all in all that you do. On behalf of everyone that put this together tonight, Rarchar and I want to thank you together. Just you're awesome. Adam behind the scenes and Daniel and all of our team. We could not do that without you. So we love you and we appreciate you. And we hope everyone has a wonderful, wonderful night. And we will get to these comments as best we can. Thank you so much all and have a good night.
Good night.
We have up is down, left is right, bad is good, confusion. And God is not the author of confusion.
God wants to bless America, but it starts with his people first, repenting and the ending of sin.
We have been in ministry the last 20 years. It was in prayer that the Lord began to convict me to run for office. And so I'm excited about Dr. Sherwood stepping up to the plate.
This is a man after God's own heart, who will not compromise with the devil.
He's bold, he's courageous.
I'm Nick Vujicic.
Warren Hamilton.
I'm Jake Merrick.
And I endorse
enthusiastically
Dr. Mark Sherwood
as governor of Oklahoma.
The ending of slavery happened with total abolishing of it. We must see this as well for abortion. It's America's Holocaust.
We still have abortions in Oklahoma. How can you be pro-life and have one abortion? Why not stop it right now? And I make a commitment right now that I'm going to do everything I can to completely abolish abortion in the state of Oklahoma within the first 30 days of office.
Vaccine mandates that are being rolled out right now are entirely unconstitutional and unbiblical. Every state that's a member of these United States, that's a member of our union, said we'll abide by the Constitution. That's why we don't tinker with it too much.
So I believe the word mandate doesn't equate to law. I am a big believer in the 10th Amendment, and that means state sovereignty. I would propose that every single business owner in Oklahoma that's affected by that ridiculous mandate push back and say no, because they don't own you. The federal government does not own you. We need to own that amendment, understand what it is, and not be afraid to push back.
We have to understand where critical race theory came from. Obviously, it comes from the Marxist handbook. And if we preach this and promote this, we end up a Marxist nation. It is not social justice. It is not anti-racism. It's actually racism in its purest form. The very thing Martin Luther King Jr. talked about, we're not going to allow this to be taught where we judge by the color of our skin.
There's one race. It's called the human race. I'm not going to apologize for being white. I'm not even white. I don't even know what I am. Kids in school need to be taught how to live life. Right now, we're teaching them theories about how to hate. That's not education, that's brainwashing. We will not do that under my administration. We will fine every school that does that. And if they don't like it, they can take their education and find another state that will accept that nonsense. People all need to be healed. Our state needs to be healed, our land needs to be healed, the economy needs to be healed, and our confidence needs to be healed. Our hope needs to be restored. God has gifted us as healers. We know that we're called to not just heal people individually like we do, but we know now we're called to heal a group of people called the state of Oklahoma. My name is Mark Sherwood, and I'm running for governor of the state of Oklahoma.